All right, here to start with, this area out in the middle, this is just your drawing area, your drawing space. It's out here in the middle, all this blackness. From there, up at the top, you have all these different buttons that you can click on to pull up commands. And above that, you have these tabs that you can hit that open up even more commands yet. And you have a lot of options of different commands you can pick up there at the top. Okay? Down on the bottom, you have this thing down here, which is called your command line. Now, every year, some people make the mistake and think that you need to go down there and click in your command line to type. You do not. When you start typing, I type anything here, it automatically appears right out there in the middle of the screen. When I hit enter, then it drops down here to where it's above the command line because that was a command I just entered in. So command line is here. Right above it is kind of your history of your command line. Below that, over here to the side, over here on the bottom, these are some toggles that toggle things on and off. Grid and snap and ortho and several other things we'll talk about as we go through this down here to below. You click on it once, it goes from blue, this one that is blue, goes to gray, or back onto blue. It turns things on and off there. Okay, so now here a little bit of talking about this next part. So I learned CAD, almost 30 years ago I started learning CAD. It was way back on AutoCAD version 13. It wasn't 2013, it was just version 13. Actually, I think I might have learned on version 10 was the first version. But anyway, it was a long time ago. It was pre-Windows. Back in the day, there was something called DOS. Some of you probably say, I don't even know what DOS is, but it was DOS. It was before you had Windows. So all these buttons up at the top and to the side and all those things, they weren't there. There was not such a thing. So the typed in commands were very important. Learning how to get into a command by typing it into the screen was a very important step. All those commands I learned 30 years ago still work today the same way, because that's one thing, the typed in portions of the commands is one thing that AutoCAD hasn't changed over all the years. However, one thing they do change a lot is these buttons. The buttons up here and the way that some of these commands work, and then the tabs down here on the bottom and the tabs at the top, they change that stuff around a lot. And when they change that stuff around a lot, every year I find out, well, that doesn't work the way it used to. We're going to have to find another way around that. For AutoCAD 2023, this is actually only the third day I've used AutoCAD 2023. They install these on the computers here in the classroom the day before we get to class, and I don't usually have a lot of time to use it between then and now. This is just the third day I've played with this. So as we go through this year, there are going to be things I learned that don't work the same way, and we'll have to find a different way of doing it because of the buttons changing. So this is the reason why, as we go through CAD, I'm really going to stress the typed in commands. I want you to get used to doing the typed in commands. A person that's very efficient in CAD, and I don't pretend to be very efficient, I'm kind of efficient, but a person that's very efficient on CAD will have one hand on the keyboard at all times and one hand on the mouse at all times. So with one hand, they're entering in their shortcut keys, and on the other hand, they're moving around doing the commands. They're never coming up here and clicking on line up here, and then coming down here to draw a line, and then going back up here to pick a circle, and then coming down here to draw a circle. They're going L for line, enter, C for circle, enter, and they're doing it very quickly with the one hand as the other hand is working. And I know I'm just saying hit enter. Enter is one way of doing it, but then also another way of entering the command is the space bar. So for example, if we're going to enter in command right now, and I want you to do this, go L, and then enter or space bar, either one will enter the command. It's the same thing. And you see down below on your command line, it gives you your first prompt, which is specify the first point. You're going to come out there on the screen somewhere and you're going to click, and that's going to be the first point of your line. And it gives you this thing that's called a rubber band line. Stretches back and forth on your screen like so. All right. I'm going to pause. All right. So here's our rubber band line. Now, as we're doing our rubber band line, we're going to come down below here and look at some of these buttons down below. All right. So right now, this first one, we're going to come down here and hover over it. And this first one, if you hover there, it's called grid mode. If I click on it, and it's hard to see up there, I know, on the projector screen, it turns the grid off your screen. You click it again, it turns grid back on. Grid is one that I typically keep on. It gives you a nice little visual reference of things that you're drawing. The next one over is called snap mode. Click on it, and you turn snap mode on. Now, what you'll notice is when you're moving around, it makes your mouse jump every half an inch on the screen. I jump from 9.1 to 9.6, from 9.6 to 10.1, for 10.6. I have my grid, or sorry, my snap is set to every half of an inch as default. Back in the day when I first learned CAD, snap was a huge help, a huge assisting tool. Now they've made and created other things that snap really is no longer a thing that's used. So all I'm telling you about snap is, it's the second one over, 99% of the time you're going to keep it turned off. When it gets turned on by accident, it really is kind of a pain in the rear and it causes you issues. So I would definitely leave that one turned off. All right, so next one over, we're going to just click on it. It is called ortho mode. So click on your ortho mode and notice what happens. With ortho mode on, what does that do for you? It restricts your mouse to only let you draw vertical or horizontal lines. And that's it. Vertical, horizontal, that's all you can do with ortho mode on. All right, next over, you're going to click on this one. When you hover over it, it's called polar tracking. You're going to click on it to turn it on, one. And then second, click this little down arrow that's right beside it. So right beside it is a little down arrow, and it'll give you some options. It has some options there for your polar tracking. It makes your cursor lock in every 90, 180, 270, or 45, 90, 135, etc. All these are 30, 60, 90. I like to keep mine set on the second choice, which is 45, 90, 135, etc. So click on that one to select it. And then come out here to the screen and notice what it does. You can draw a line at any angle you want. However, when you go straight to the side, it locks you in with that little green dashed line. So you're locked in at a 0 degree angle. So we're going to click here. And then if I want to draw a 45 degree angle line, I come to here. There's my 45 degree angle line. Beautiful. If I want to come back at this angle, that's 135. Click. Back at 180. And then back down here. So that's kind of what that does for you. Okay. Now that we're in the middle of this line, we have this line on here for a while. I've done this a few times without even saying anything about it. When your line's connected, you know, I'm clicking all over here, line's connected. To disconnect that line, you just hit escape. So hit escape, and your line disconnects, and then your line's no longer connected onto there. All right, next off. The next one over is called isometric drafting. So we'll click on it. For isometric drafting, notice what that did to my cursor. I'm going to slide everything to the side here a little bit. Puts my cursor there at a kind of a weird angle. I know you've all seen these before. This is an isometric drawing. I'll do a simple one here real quick. Oops, I misclicked. All right, there's a simple little drawing of an isometric cube. You've all seen these before. We may or may not get to that this year. Last year, with some of the stuff at the start of the school year with COVID, we didn't get quite everything in I wanted to, and this is one of the things we left out. Isometric drawings are kind of fun. They're fun to do, but not as useful as drawing 3D solids, and that's really what we try to get to. So we'll see if we have time for isometrics or not this year. All right. Next off, and go ahead and turn ISO back off. Next off, we have two other ones. Those next two we're actually going to talk about as we work to them as doing our next little thing. So for now, I just want you to turn those off. So you're going to click on that one, turn it off. Click on that one, turn it off. These next two over, you don't have them at this point. I want you to add those two in. This one's called line weight, and this one's called dynamic UCS. To add those two in, what you're going to do, you're going to come down here to the bottom right corner on toolbars. So over here, go all the way down your toolbars, all the way over there to the right. And those three little lines that says customization, click on it. And you're going to come on this list. You're going to add in line weight and add in dynamic UCS. Line weight and dynamic UCS. Yes, ma'am? Okay, so again, once again, you should have got those two open, line weight and dynamic UCS. And now go ahead and just turn all of the buttons off down below. I, however, am going to leave on my line weight just so you can see my lines better. But all the rest of those should all be turned off so you have nothing there on the screen. Okay, so now I want to get rid of some of this stuff out here on the screen. There's two different ways of doing stuff like that. One is just undoing. However, if I undo now, since I just did these things, I'm going to undo those steps. So I really don't want to do that. I want to erase it. Shortcut for erase, what do you guess it might be? E. So you hit E and enter, or E and spacebar. And you come out there, pick a big box around everything, click down below, click up above, it selects them all, and hit enter, and you can erase them. Now, you can also just select the things and hit your delete key on the keyboard, and it will delete them out. However, delete really isn't a CAD command. It's something you can use on any computer program, basically. I want you to get used to using erase command because there's some option with the erase that gives you some other good options to do. So get used to using erase. Alrighty. Let's take a look at what's next here. Everybody good with a nice blank screen? So now, what we're going to start with is this. We're going to start with the line command once again. So we're going to go L for line. I'm going to come up here on the left-ish side of my screen. So I'm going to click there. I'm going to come down on an angle approximately like that. Here, I want everybody to get the same size of drawing to start with here. The first hour I did this on third hour yesterday. I did not do this step, and one person's drawing was millions of inches tall. It made things a little bit difficult on one of the other things we did later. So here I want everybody to be the same size, so put it down at about that angle, and just type the number 2 and hit enter. So 2, enter. And then hit escape so you disconnect that line. So there is my little 2-inch long line. Yours may look longer or shorter than that. Yours could look something like this, and you can just see part of your line. You don't even see it all. Yours could look something like this, and it's a tiny little blip. You can't see your line at all. And what I'm doing here is I'm zooming in and out, this is called. To do that, you take your middle mouse button and scroll it. So that little rolling button there in the middle. If I roll it away from me, I zoom in. And notice how I'm zooming in. So if my cursor's over here, if I scroll it, I'll zoom in on that point. If I want to zoom in on the line, put my cursor on top of the line and scroll, and I'll zoom right in on my line. If I roll my mouse back towards me, I zoom out. So play with that a little bit, zooming in, zooming out with your middle mouse button. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to start our drawing. Now here's a part of this. When I go to grade this, if your drawing looks like mine does, and what I want you to do next for this next step is I want you to repeat the line command. And I want you to come about here, come up, something like that, come down about here, something like that, and go up about there, like so. So when I go to grade this, if this looks like what you've got, right there, that's 100% A, if you got something approximately like that. If you have something that looks like this, this is a 0% F. You get to redo the assignment. So just kind of let you know, my expectations is, when I'm going through, I call this playing nice with Mr. Worcester. When you play nice, you have this beautiful little W. That's supposed to be a W. Looks similar to that. When you have the scribble doesn't count.